read a few biographies as well. So that kind of gave me insight into what sort of things officers end up doing, and it just seemed like it was a place where you could end up doing a lot, and most importantly, see the impact of what you were doing straight away on the field. We can come to some anecdotes later in the talk. So
That's
even though
actually
this,
also true, very true. Yeah, continue.
yeah, even though the thought was there, even in college, it was not enough for me to just jump onto it because I mean, as we all know, it's a huge risk, high risk, high reward sort of thing. So I really think if you have the conviction, then go for it. If you are really here and there, just maybe take some more time to be sure, because once you jump in, it can become a bit of a whirlpool, and if you don't make it in the first attempt, like Simi ma'am, you could end up spending plenty of years.
Yeah. So both of
So
you.
yeah, here I just want to add very quickly that that's actually something that really inspired me as well, that I got to hear a talk by a very senior IS officer at that time, Mr. Anil Swarup sir. He was then the school education secretary, and I think that was sort of the decision point or the changing point where I finally decided that yes, this is a career option worth pursuing. So yeah, that really helps to hear someone of that domain.
Wow. So both of you took your time to explore the various domains and then decided to jump in UPSC preparation. Yeah. Ma'am, as you said, you didn't appear for the placement. So many students face this dilemma, whether to prepare for placement or start with the UPSC preparation. So like, how can a student decide? Because a placement is a very lucrative offer. So how should we decide?
It's very true, because I remember my final semester when everyone was celebrating, chalo ab to job lag gaya, party karte hain. Went to a lot of my batchmates jobs, party placement parties as well, and us time pe bahut ek existential crisis aata hai ki what am I doing with my life right now. So yes, whether to sit or not in the placements is a very big decision, and I think it's a very personal one. No one can take it for you, and like Utkarsh said, it is based on a lot of conviction and a lot of other factors. For me, I think I was very clear that even after this after my college is over, I would definitely take a year off if nothing else to prepare. So I thought that even if I get placed, that would just add to my confusion as to whether then should I join the job or not, or should I go for a full-fledged preparation. So that's when I decided that all right, I'll take this risk of not sitting for placements. But I think it was a very calculated one. I had thought it out very well. I had my backup option in mind. It was also very clear. I had made it very clear in my head how many attempts I would give. So I had decided that I would give at max 3 attempts, and if I don't see myself going somewhere, I'll probably pursue a master's or an MBA. So give a CAT, do an MBA, or go for a GRE or GMAT. But it was very clear in my head what sort of timelines I was getting into, and what deadlines I was giving myself. And I think that sort of helped me build my conviction as well to not sit for placements. But I totally accept the fact that it's a very big decision and everyone has to take their own.
Wow, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your in-depth explanation. Sir, did you also face the same dilemma? What was your situation in your last semester?
Okay, so like I said, I did not have the conviction in the final year to jump into this, so I waited it out. If you have the conviction, if you have the courage, because you are in a way swimming upstream.
Yeah.
Like ma'am said, you have a lot of your batchmates sitting in the placements, ending up with jobs. So you're letting go of that and also some sort of exposure. So for me, it was a bit of both. One, I did not have the conviction. Second, it was a good opportunity. So I thought I should at least give it 1 year to know what I'm sort of giving up. So kal ko agar tayari mein, if I don't end up like uh, really having that mindset, if I sort of lose track, I should at least not have the thought ki, oh, I should have given that a thought before coming back here. So it is a practical decision in that sense. Thirdly, I also thought it's good money, so why not just have a bit of savings to boost my to have the support me as such. So like ma'am said, it's a very personal decision. See where you stand. Look where you see yourself later. If you do not have the conviction, please go with what people are doing. If you have the conviction, please don't follow what people are doing. Follow what is your calling. And that applies not just civil services. There are a lot of my batchmates who also did not sit for placements because they were sure about pursuing higher study. So they had applied, and those results normally come in February or March. So they did not
Yes.
have it in their hand, but they still did not sit in a placement because they were sure that, okay, I have a very good profile, got good recommendations. So I'll not sit in the placements at all, and I'll simply wait for my MS and PhD application results. So it all ultimately boils down to where you stand, and that's a very subjective sort of call. It's not easy, and I really empathize
Yeah.
with those of you in the final year.
Yeah. So one should really weight his choices, whether he's really convicted or not to go for the preparation. Yeah.
Whether he has a
Mo-
conviction or not.
Yes. So moving on to the next, like it is a well-established fact that in any exam, early preparation gives us an edge. But again, both of you coming from an engineering major, and both of you coming from a hectic engineering major, I will say, electrical engineering and CSE. So, what was your like? What should be an ideal year to start with the UPSC preparation? Can we start it in the college year itself? Sir,
Utkarsh, you can
maybe.
take it first.
I can take it. Okay. So again, you'll hear two perspectives here because ma'am started preparation in college. I started it
Yeah.
after my college. Um, you can definitely start. In fact, there's a very long-standing culture in Kanpur and Delhi where they prepare early on. They have the libraries and they have sections there which are dedicated just for this. So they have quizzes, they have discussions, and all of that. So in that sense, it becomes a continuity of across the batches. That is not very common. At least it was not common while I was at IIT Bombay. I don't know what the scene is right now. You can definitely start, and I think it's again, it just comes back to where you stand and how sure about you're about this. In any case, I think a newspaper is something we all should be doing, no matter where we are. Even if you're in the tech field, a bit of exposure to what's happening in the society in the country is very, very healthy. It
Yeah.
makes you more informed, makes you a better citizen. If you vote, you'll at least know what you're voting for and so on. But at the same time, when once you have a bit of inclination towards civil services, you can start preparing the basics. So again, I think of the preparation as two-step preparation. One is your basic NCRT, second is one step higher, whatever reference books it can be. So you can start with the NCRT if you're sure. But at the same time, I want to really emphasize that in your college, do not miss out on all the growth opportunities that you get, all the exposure that you get, be it academically, be it POS, be it sports, be it cultures, be it anything. Because ultimately, even if you look at it very pragmatically, just from UPSC perspective, you have to fill up a DAF.
Right.
And what goes into a DAF is what you did in your college and your previous years. So do not compromise, but definitely like find that balance. And depending on how strong your inclination is, you can start with the preparation. Over to you, ma'am.
Um, I think so. I'll address that part about the preparation starting in college
Yeah.
later. But I totally resonate with what Utkarsh said about not missing out on your college years. A lot of people come up to me and kids as young as 11th or 12th and they're like, "Ma'am, मेरे को अपना college कौन सा select करना चाहिए? What graduation field should I base it on UPSC?" And I say that's an absolutely a big no. That's a personal take, but I think that's a big no because your graduation should be where your calling lies, or at least a little bit of interest. Something should be there, what you're doing, and it should not be based on UPSC. So I think the first 3 years I've had a whole lot of fun, and in fact, in my seventh semester, I was playing Kho. I went for group for rural activities. I think rural visits 1 or 2. I did dance. I did a whole lot of activities, and like Utkarsh said, we have to make the best use of these 4 years to build up personality. It's also a phase of huge personal development and not just your academics part, and both of it count, even the academics part from the college perspective. So that is something you should emphasize on before jumping into any sort of preparation, be it UPSC, GRE, or anything else for that matter. Coming to the preparation, if let's say you are in your first or second year and you are sort of clear that you want to go for UPSC, like it's a trend in a lot of IITs, we can take up extra courses in the initial semesters, so
Yes.
that we have less burden in our seventh and eighth semester. So in my eighth semester, I just had 2 or 3 courses. 2 of them were humanities courses. I was doing a minor in humanities and social sciences. So that really helped. That gave me a lot of time later on when we have to do the rigorous work, rigorous preparation. I got a
Mm.
lot of time. So if you are in that situation, you can definitely consider doing that. And that's, I think that's true for a lot of career options, be it a PhD, pursuing a master's, be it going for an MBA. You have to prepare for CAT. So all of these things will come in your final year. Use your initial years to complete off your courses. Another thing, which again I would agree with Utkarsh, is reading newspaper. If I don't know about others whether they read newspaper or not, but yeah, if you are someone who is aspiring for UPSC, I think you should read newspaper. That really gives a lot of perspective in general on a different topics in life. And apart from that, you can also read a lot of books about India, like books, let's say by authors like Guru Charan Das or Amartya Sen, someone like that. It's just to build your
Ramchandra
own
Guha.
perspective on India as a country, its
Yeah.
history, its culture, its society, its economics. So, and the NCRTs, of course, just to make your fundamentals strong. So these are the things which don't take up a lot of effort, but they make for interesting
Ma'am, I
read.
think your
And
network is interrupted. Yeah.
so yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah, it's stable.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So these are the kind of books or readings that you can do in your initial years, and then you can get into the rigor of preparation in your final year.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to chime in a little bit here.
Hmm.
You've all cleared JE. You've all been through something very intense, very hectic. You kind of
Yes.
know how to plan a hectic work schedule and pursue it and achieve your whatever, break your goal into mini goals and plan everything, all of that.
Right.
So if you are motivated, there's a very, very good chance you'll clear the exam. What you need to really figure out in your college is, one, are you sure about this? Two, what other opportunities are there which you're giving up? Once you're sure about that, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Okay, not straightforward, but still doable. I'm reasonably confident most people here can clear it, but you need to have that conviction that, okay, you want to pursue this because this can get hectic, this can get draining, especially when you look at your batchmates who are doing well, who are earning, who are most importantly moving on in life. So if you get stuck here, you need to have that motivation to sort of sustain you. That's, I think, a prerequisite before you jump into the preparation.
Right. Like, yes, and perseverance is one of the most like useful skills to clear the UPSC exam. Like now moving on to the exam pattern and exam scenario, UPSC CSE is globally considered to be a very well-led examination and covers a diverse aspect of skills and knowledge. So could you throw some light on the examination pattern? What is the current pattern?
Okay, I can take this one. If you look at the syllabus, it's a total of 2075 marks, more or less 2000 marks. Out of this 2000, 1000 marks is your GS papers. That's the humanities side, but covers basically everything that we left way back in class 10th: history, geography, physics, history, geography, political science, international relations, science and tech, ethics, and a few more things: security, governance, etc., etc. Just throwing buzzwords at you and hoping some of you catch some of them. Point is, a lot of your preparation will be humanities. A lot of it will be going back to what we left at class 10th. Some of which some of you may have liked, some of which some of you may not have liked, and you'll get a flavor of that all over again, for good and for bad. For bad, because a lot of it is rote learning, a lot of it is sort of memorizing things and facts and so on and so forth. But on the flip side, what I also believe, and what most of my batchmates also agreed with, was the social studies or humanities that we study in school. It's from a really, really rote perspective. So even though I said it's a lot of rote learning, once you grow up, you can really appreciate the nuances of a lot of things which we could not in school. At least I could not. And that really gives you a feel for the society around you, where you come from, and the answers that you write, the things that you read, they really reflect your observation around you. So it's a very fun journey if you can take it that way. That is the humanities side. 500 marks is your optional paper. You pick up one optional. This can be engineering subjects, like I think there are four engineering subjects: civil, chemical, civil, mechanical, electrical, and there's one more. I cannot recall. You can just check that. Along with this, you can take up maths, you can take up physics, chemistry. You can take up a lot of humanities subjects as well. So now, on the choice of the optional, a lot of people pick up the engineering optionals, but they have a large syllabus and they're not always easy. So it's very common for engineers, even IITs, to take up humanities subjects like anthropology and sociology and so on. And you can cover those in a shorter time and get decent marks while also helping with your humanities preparation. So that is 1000 plus 500, plus there's 250 for the essay writing, which is basically how fluently and how diverse your creative writing can be. It's not creative, but it's a lot of building up on whatever you see and learn on a daily basis. Some of it is directly GS, for example, something related to transport or something related to education or healthcare and so on. Some of it is also very abstract. It's really up to you how to interpret that. So that is basically your essay paper, and finally the interview. Something a lot of people dread, something a lot of people enjoy. It's basically a focused conversation around what you've grown up with, what's your perspective on the world, Do you have what it takes to be a good officer? Can you command? Can you direct? Can you see through issues? Do you have a nuanced stand, or do you see the world in black and white, and so on and so forth? So that's basically the exam structure. You clear your prelims first. If you qualify, you then get to write mains. Out of around 3 to 4 lakh people, around 10-20,000 people end up writing mains. That's a significant cut. Earlier, there was a CSAT paper, which was basically maths and English, which allowed us to clear it easily because it is added to the qualifying total. Now it's only a qualifying, meaning now you have to get 33% in CSAT, and it doesn't count more than that. You have to clear based on your general studies paper. And the cutoffs can be competitive. A lot of people do not get that right. But also prelims is a lot of facts, so the point is that it's a very different preparation from mains. You kind of, the topics are similar, the content is similar, but the way you approach is very different because prelims is MCQ. You need to get the facts right in the top of your head. Also get that sort of guess master giri is what the term very commonly used. The point is that you will not know all the answers, but you still need to figure out how to get the answers right. So once you do that, you come to the mains part, which is a lot of subjective writing. Mains is hard, but mains is also far more fair. If you have worked hard, if you have revised, if you know, you'll get decent marks in mains. वो ठगेगा नहीं आपको. You'll not feel cheated there. And if you clear mains, you get a call for the interview. So around 2 to 3,000 people, 4,000 people end up getting a call for the interview, and you get a final mark sheet rank list based on your mains plus interview scores. It went a bit long. Ma'am, you can add to whatever I missed out.
I think you've covered it very comprehensively. I think we can move on to the next one.
That was a really informative answer. So, ma'am, moving on to next. So, did you opt for online resources or traditional coaching or self-study? Like, what was your mood for learning?
Okay, so I think it was a mix. I think like the cases for a lot of people. I was preparing for my prelims on my own because I was in college. So I did prelims without any coaching, did the basic books. We have a standard book list. You can check out anyone's blog or I guess any topper's video. That is that. And after prelims, I did join coaching both for my optional, which was political science and international relations, and for my general studies part. And I primarily did that because I needed a lot of content in a very short time because I had very little time at my hands, and that was my biggest constraint. So also, I guess I feel personally that if you choose the right coaching, they do make your life much easier because you get a lot of material consolidated in one place. You get a lot of hand holding in terms of answer writing, etc. And that reflects in terms of how quickly you pick it up. So taking coaching or not, I think is a personal choice. It was necessary for me. I thought it was necessary and hence I took it. And for you interview as well, I took some sort of coaching and of course the mock interviews that we generally do. But before starting the coaching and those parts, I think one must realize how to start preparing for this exam. And that is very important because it forms the base for your actual preparation. And a lot of people miss out on planning it out well. And then for the first two attempts, they're just trying to figure out what to study. If you are able to clear that thing in the first attempt itself, that saves a lot of time and energy. So 2-3 things that I think are a must for anyone starting their journey is the previous year questions, the syllabus. Let's start with the syllabus. Firstly, the syllabus. Second, the previous year questions, both for the prelims and the mains. So let's say you go for something like economy. So you take the prelims questions first. You get all these booklets where you have these sorted questions. You take all the prelims questions of economy. And then whichever topic you're studying in economy, let's say you have websites like Mrunal where they have the segregated questions, then you go for the mains questions. So you know what exactly you're dealing with and what the interviewer, whatever the person is demanding from you. And then you align your preparation accordingly. I think that's a very important thing that everyone must do. Previous year questions and the syllabus, and henceforth build on it. Another thing which I did very much was I did not have a lot of people like Utkarsh said, we don't have a very good circle in terms of preparation in IIT Bombay. So what I did was I talked to a lot of seniors of our college who've cleared the exam, a few other seniors who I could get into touch with. And much more than that, I think what helped was the videos, toppers videos, the standard Vision Eyes videos or the GS Core videos. They really help a lot. Invest their time to really figure out their mindset. Take the perspectives from, let's say, people, at least 4-5 different people, but then build your own strategy. Don't just blindly follow someone, because tomorrow there'll be another UPSC topper and he or she will have another strategy. So don't do that. Read up on 4 or 5 different strategies, build your own strategy. Also look for people who are in the same space as you are. So I was a fourthie, preparing in college with limited time, having to balance my college studies. So whoever I chose to follow were people who were in similar space as I was, and then I built my preparation strategy. So this is something that one must take into account while starting their preparation.
Yeah, that more or less covers whatever I had in mind. Just want to add just one thing. What ma'am talked about in the sense of starting up, it's crucial, it's difficult, and so on. That's like just any other startup as well. The first few things are very, very tricky. So it's okay if you join a coaching back at that point. Just be clear that a coaching here is not what a IIT JEE coaching is. You cannot rely on them completely. It's a very unstructured world, just like general studies. They'll cover maybe 30-40% of the syllabus. So even if you go there, pick and choose what you take from them. Ask a lot of questions. And also bear in mind that they do not segregate based on your performance, etc. So you will be a part of a 300-500 odd batch of all sorts of people. Maybe 5 or 10 of them would be serious. So if you do decide to join a coaching, be clear that you need to identify those people from that circle, or you can get distracted easily. Also make sure you are responsible for getting the most of your money's worth. I did join the classes. In a 2-hour class, I would end up asking 5 to 7 questions on a daily basis, because that was how I kept myself motivated to sort of establish a rapport with the teachers. And again, I ended up joining a current affairs program between a preparation, which was basically a 25 student classroom. And I think I benefited the most out of that, because I could really get a one-on-one rapport with the teacher there. So just be very careful in what you join and where you join, and be in what you take. You end up joining different coachings for different things. There's a lot of people who join an optional coaching, many people who don't, many people who join a GS coaching, and many people who don't. Just at least start up and get a feel for how things are going. Watch a lot of topic videos like ma'am said, and get a feel for what you need a coaching for. A lot of people don't need a GS coaching. A lot of people don't need optional coachings. A lot of people also join an essay coaching. So it really varies. See where you stand.
That was really well articulated answers from both of you. In our discussion, we mentioned the word preparation strategy. So let's come on to that. Like, the most important part of achieving any goal is the strategy behind it and how dedicatedly we follow that. So what was your strategy? How was your daily routine? Let's suppose you are preparing in the full swing right now. You are at the very last days of the examination. So what was your routine at that time?
Ma'am, you can take this one.
Okay. Okay, that's a very long question. Okay, but like a few of the things we've discussed already. I told you the start part. How do you get it kick-started? What are some of the background readings that you can do to sort of build yourself for the preparation? Coming to the rigor of the exam, some of the things I think which really worked for me, just a few tips would be, first, like Utkarsh said it, like break down your goal. Of course, like UPSC is a very big thing. And if you keep thinking about interview while you have not even cleared prelims, it does not make sense. So for me, it was even more difficult given that I had a very limited time to prepare. I had very short preparation time. So I was preparing as such that I had a weekly target, I had a daily target, and sometimes even an hourly target. I think that's a productivity geek within me, but like I would have an hourly target and I would push myself to keep achieving that. And that really helps. You are most of the times you're never able to achieve that target, but it really keeps you motivated, keep going through the rigor of the preparation. A lot of people feel burnt out during the preparation. So these are just ways to avoid that. So setting smaller targets, setting smaller goals, setting more realistic goals is something that helps. For something like, so limited book sources, limited book list is very, very important, I personally feel, because you can have, you can cover 10 different newspapers and never ever be able to cover all the current affairs. So I don't
Yeah.
believe in that. I don't believe in having multiple resources also for a given book. You can supplement your source, but then I would always believe in bringing it all back to one place. So even if, let's say, for history, I'm referring to 2 or 3 sources, those all have to come back in one source, because you have to really imagine what goes on in the last 5-6 days just before the exam. You have very limited time and you have to revise a lot of it. So all of your preparation strategy should be such that it is coming aligning towards your revision in the last days. And whatever you can't revise, in all likelihood you'll forget. So that's how I was aligning all of my preparation, consolidating it all the time, perhaps highlighting it in one go. The next read, I'm just underlining it. The next one, I'm just boxing the most important keywords, so that whatever is taking me, let's say 1 hour to read at any given moment, the next time it'll take me, let's say half an hour, the next time, let's say 10 minutes, and then I can do it like within a minute or so. So all of your resource has to be consolidated in that format. That's something I was following, having limited book sources. Another thing which I did, like for prelims, which a lot of us do, was taking a lot of test papers, practicing with the same timeline that we have for the actual exam, both in the case of prelims and mains, and then going back and analyzing how I performed in that. What I have seen a lot of people do is not be sincere in this. So they'll think that they'll write a perfect answer when they're writing for mains, which is not possible. No one can ever write a perfect answer. And 10 times you write that answer, I think every time you'll feel like I've written a better answer. But that's not what it's needed, right? You need to complete the paper, you need to finish it off, and you need to write better than average answers in most of them. So that should be your strategy. When you're writing the practice test, give it like the actual test. That's when you get into the rigor of the exam. And I think a lot of us, all of us, because we've cleared JEE, we have that idea. Whenever we've not done those practice tests for in the coaching for the JEE, then when you came to the actual exam, you would feel so much pressure. So that's again, that's similar here as well, UPSC, that you have to keep building that pressure on you during preparation time, so that in the actual exam you feel the pressure much less. What else did I did? I think another thing that really helped me was, because this was my final year of college and I had to juggle between classes, I used a lot of online sources. I was reading the newspaper online. So whenever I was sitting in classes, if it was boring, I would scroll through it. If I was moving in between classes, I could scroll through it. A lot of my notes and everything was made online, so I could scroll through my revision notes even between the classes. So that's something you can try if you are comfortable with the online mode. I was very comfortable with making notes online. So that's another thing that I did. And I think now Utkarsh should say something so that I can then remember what else I forgot.
That covers a lot of what I had to say, but I was want to emphasize on the online notes thing, because you will be reading a lot, you'll be thinking a lot, you'll be Googling a lot, you'll be watching videos a lot wherever you get stuck. And your mindset, whatever is there in your head, should reflect what's there in your notes. The notes should reflect what's on your head. That was something I really tried hard to achieve. Apart from that, it's about the iteration. So you read something, you make notes out of it, your notes keep growing, your notes need to be revised. Then that translates into the exam answer sheet. And then depending on the exam answer sheet feedback, your notes get sort of revised. So this notes answer sheet iteration, it happens a few times before your notes really get perfected. Because you need to reach a point where your notes really address the exam demand. So for an answer, for example, if you have a question on, say, the privatization of railways, so what is the government proposal? What are the pros and cons? What did expert committees say? Because we are laymen, we are not experts. What did experts say? What are some similar examples globally? So there are different sort of dimensions which the better you cover while studying, while revising, the better it will be for the exam. Agar exam mein aata hai, if it comes up in the exam, I'll end up picking 1 or 2 dimensions from my notes and just copy pasting it there with some sort of continuity establishing sentences. So the goal is to reach as much there as possible. The exam ultimately for 3 hours means that if you're writing 20 answers, you read a question, you have 10-20 seconds to process, and then you start writing and you figure out the rest of it while you're writing. So unless you have all of that on your fingertips in a structure. So for me, that structure is something like, say, okay, I'll come back to railways because it's my favorite example. Let's say railways itself has challenges and whatever suggestions and so on. So, okay, railways is there, a node. You all know graphs, right? So railways is a node here. You have different sort of arrows coming out of it. One is challenges. So challenges can be classified into structural, financial, governance, service related, so on. And each of them will have 4-5 heads sort of. So you need to have that structure so you can kind of cycle through it when you're in the exam. It also makes it easy for you to think. If you think about something, you can sort of pick up the different dimensions around it. And there will be times when when you haven't prepared something thoroughly, but because you're able to think through different dimensions, you're able to come up with points. Because ultimately in the exam, if you have 2 or 3 dimensions to address, you might need 7 to 8 points in each of them. And you can't just write them in one go, right? You need to have some structure in how you come up with the points. So how well your notes are made, how much we basically sweat in training is the less you'll bleed in the actual exam. The rest of it is what ma'am essentially said. Do find similarly placed people. I had a junior, Harshal Mahajan. So he was also maths optional, and we really synced up our preparation. We used to compare a performance on everything. We used to talk, we used to gossip, we used to entertain, we used to do everything, because you're in a space where you cannot see your progress very much. Nobody outside will know what you're doing. They will not know where you stand. So you really need to have 1 or 2 peers who know where you stand, who are there to intervene, and who you are there to intervene and sort of keep you sane. We used to have rapid fire questions. So for example, again, because it's prelims and there's a lot of facts to memorize, it could be, for example, the different social movements of the 20th century. It could be different newspapers and who were the editors. It could be a lot of similar things which you have to, this is memorized. Some of it comes to you naturally, some of it you have to memorize. So we used to have daily like sort of slots. Okay, today at 3:30 we'll be discussing the newspapers. I give him a call. I give the newspaper name. He's the founder, and so on and so forth. You go back and forth. It becomes a very nice sort of back and forth competition, and it gives you that extra sort of motivation or hunger to do well, and you pull each other's like, okay, you're slacking off now, okay, prelims se niklega is baar, and so on and so forth. Also know where you stand. Ma'am was lucky to get through in the first attempt. I took 2 attempts. So I really messed up my first attempt because I could not do justice to my general studies. I focused a lot on my optional. I got a good 303 in my optional out of 500. Anything in excess of 300 is very good. But my GS really got screwed. And when the mark sheet came after first attempt, I knew where I was stuck. I did not practice GS. I did not write enough tests for mains. I wrote just 8 or 9 GS tests, which was nothing. I rectified that in a second attempt. In a second attempt, I knew my optional is done. I don't have to address that. In the space between first and second attempt, I got lucky because it was the COVID year. So I had 3 months in between. Normally, between interview and prelims, you have barely a month and a half, which means you end up getting stuck in that cycle. People who clear it, who get to the interview and don't get a service, are probably the most ill-fated, because you do not have time to refresh yourself.
Enough time.
You're just given the interview and you are suddenly back in the game of writing prelims. So I got lucky there, but just make sure, this means that you need to use that time between mains and interview to brush up on your next attempt. So just that time management is very crucial. What else? Just know what your weak points are and how do you want to address them. If you read Kanishka Kataria sir's blog, he will tell you very explicitly what marks distribution he expected across papers. He ended up exceeding all of them. That's why he got a rank 1. But his strategy was very clear that, okay, in maths I need to get excess of 330, 350. He got 361. That's crazy. But his point was, if I do very well in the optional and I do decent in GS, that was his strategy. Something I try to follow as well. I got 330 in my 322 in my maths, which was the highest of that year, and that made up for my slightly below average general studies. That's not below average because I didn't prepare. I was actually prepared this time, but I mean, general studies. You can't really rely on it. You never know what goes there. I think that's pretty much it from the strategy part, ma'am. If you could,
I think I'll just I'll emphasize again on what Utkarsh said about like sweating it out during preparation. So like a lot of your preparation should be such that your mind goes into auto mode while writing the exam. You don't really have too much time to think and come up with something new. So like practicing all those structuring of the answers, how will you frame it? What are the phrases that you will use? So I remember for a lot of topics, like let's say, for example, agriculture, I had 3-4 conclusions prepared beforehand. If we do this, India will achieve the target of doubling farmers' income by 2022. If we do this, the agriculture will become viable, sustainable, something. So these were they were like I had learned them. So I knew agriculture ka question aa raha hai, ye conclusion hai. Half my headache so half the time you're lost when you reach towards the conclusion or how to start the answer. So if these things you can bring into auto mode, that helps during preparation a lot, during writing the answer paper a lot. then you end up completing the answers above average, completing the paper with above average answers. So that really helped me, and I think that's something Utkarsh also resonated with. And another thing that Utkarsh touched on in terms of having company during preparation, I think I found my company ultimately after I went to Warren. I was staying in Old Rajendra Nagar for my coaching, so I found a few friends in coaching. But here you have to be very careful how you pick your friends, because they can be your best of friends or the worst of enemy.
Yeah.
And they can really slow you down or push you up, give you that extra edge. So being very selective is very important here. And I also was lucky to have very good mentorship and support from some of my coaching facility. And I think I would definitely give him credit, Mr. N.K. Adar sir. He takes the ISUP coaching, and I think I got a lot of support from him just in terms of writing good answers or the interview portion. So having a good support system really helps, and I think you have to be very selective in coming across this.
A couple of more points to add, because strategy is such a general thing. You can just keep talking
Yeah.
about it for hours.
Yeah.
Be sincere, and a lot of things will pan out. Mentors will notice you only when you are sincere, only when you have the content. Don't worry about finding mentors. Just do well, reach out, ask questions, see whose advice you relate to, and ultimately you will find that sync. I had a similar teacher from classroom program on newspapers. So he was so close to me that he took personal interviews for me. He evaluated my answer sheets differently. So if it's a test, okay, I want to just take a step back here and sort of lay down a timeline. So you have your prelims normally in June. If you clear that, you have your mains in September, October. So you have 3 months period here, and you have the interviews in say February, March,
Feb, March, yeah.
Feb until March, April, and then once that is over, you get the next prelims in the coming May. So anybody who starts the preparation normally starts in say June, July, August. You have almost just about under a year to come with the prelims. If you're lucky enough, you can cover the content, revise, and write prelims tests by the time prelims comes in May or June. If you are there and you've covered your syllabus properly, the next 3 months really make or break your preparation. That period in June, July, August is when you do the bulk of your heavy lifting. You are really writing long main answers. You're writing a lot of tests. Writing a lot of tests. I cannot tell you. It was my second attempt. I went berserk. I mean, there's a term called beast mode. I really went in there. I was writing a GS test every week. I was writing a maths test every week. I was writing an essay test every week. I was writing an ethics test every week, because ethics was something very high scoring, and I knew that if I could do well, I could really make an edge there. So these 4 3-hour tests were there every week for me. Apart from this, I had joined Forum Ka answer writing program. It was a 1-hour program every alternate day. I went mad. But those 3 months, you can really make or break your preparation. So if you have done if you have sort of warmed up properly before your prelims, if you have covered all of your syllabus, if it's all in your tips, then you can really sort of give that, what do you call that? You can really hit the 5th gear in your time between prelims and mains. Once you do that, you do your mains in August, September. Then you suddenly hit that chill period. If you go to Mahatma Gandhi, he'll tell you that struggle, truce. That's a theory. So your truce period comes in, and you can take a chill pill, relax, chill out, meet a few friends if you want. But also for the next attempt, this is when you do the heavy lifting. This is when you prepare. This is when you prepare for the next attempt. This is when you prepare for the interview. Because if the interview happens in February or March, let's say in March, you do not have enough time after that to prepare for your next prelims. You have to do that beforehand. If you want to improve for your mains, you have to improve it beforehand. Between prelims and mains, you can do an iterative improvement.
Right.
So just sort of setting that timeline right.
Also, just like the final thoughts. This is a quote which I really believed in, and I still do. I think this was something which resonated with me. Just be brutally honest with yourself. I think you can fool the whole world, but you can't fool yourself. Like, know what is the reason you're preparing for this exam. Is it like, are you internally driven, or is this some sort of external factor, like because someone else is preparing and hence you're getting it? That's the most wrong reason to ever get into this sort of preparation, because it drains you a lot. And throughout the preparation process, just be honest with where you stand. Just accept the hard truths as and when they come. when you're not performing so well in the exam. I think Utkarsh, when he was giving so many exams, he must have had a lot of harsh realities being faced when he would not be performing so well in a certain given test, or when you see others performing better than you. So it's all a part of the process. You have to just accept it and live with it, process it, and use it to your advantage. And if you're honest with yourself, you're able to do that so much more better. So yeah.
Yeah, again, I want to add on a little bit more because a lot of the people who cleared JEE who had reasonably successful lives. This might be the first time you'll face failure. This might be the first time you'll really go through dark times, and at a time when you're conscious to realize it. In 11th and 12th, if you had your struggle, you kind of just pushed through it because you couldn't really think around much, and you're in a well sort of formal structure for coaching or whatever.
Right.
This is not that. This is not that. You'll have your batchmates doing well. You'll have a lot of subjects on your desk, and it's easy to get confused, carried away, depressed, and just lose a lot of things. So what ma'am said, just be clear about your motivation. It need not be public service. If it is public service, very good. You are an asset to the nation already. If it is not public service, if you want to just prove yourself, if you want to just, prove that, okay, you did well and JEE was not a one-time thing or whatever, just be clear whatever motivates you and let that be your guiding light. Don't pull yourself.
Wow, man, that was really an insightful discussion, like covering all the aspect of preparation. So yeah, UPSC is a demanding and rigorous exam. We all know that. And as we are discussing here motivation, many aspirants feel like giving up. हम सब ने भी एस्पिरेंट्स देखा हुआ है, संदीप भैया और अभिलाष जब उनके अटेम्प्ट्स नहीं निकलते तो मायूस होते हुए देखा है उन्हें. So like what was your motivation? आपके कोई आइडल थे या फिर और कुछ कि उसने आपको हमेशा पुश दिया इस एग्जाम में पढ़ने के लिए, कंटिन्यू करने के लिए?
Utkarsh, you take this
I'll
one
leave
first.
the hard question to you.
My God.
Okay, it's an order. So, okay, one thing more, when you come to service, you'll realize this seniority thing is a lot. Ma'am is pretty chill and relaxed, so it's fine.
So
but,
I have told you millions of times that you did not call me ma'am, but you choose to ignore. So
yeah. Anyway, so point is, if you get an order, it's an order. You do not question it a lot. So based on this delegation of responsibility, I'll go ahead with the answer. Sorry, that's a lot of bureaucratic talk. I'll have to come to the point. Motivation, yes. For me, like I said, I was in Goldman Sachs, decent job, decent paid, good set of friends, good life, could take off holidays when I wanted, freedom to work from home, whatever. Most things are extrinsically enough for people to be happy. And I was reasonably happy, but whatever your core motivation is, I could not see the point of what I was doing. I was solving abstract maths problems. I have my highest respect for people who really enjoy that. I enjoyed that during JEE as well. But at this point, I did not enjoy it. I did not sink. And all of these stories of officers that really resonated with me. If you pick up your biographies, you'll find many of them. I liked one specifically, which was KJ Alphonsus. He's an IAS officer from Kerala. He was, I think, even the union minister later. But as a bureaucrat, he did some very amazing work, including the demolition of a lot of illegal buildings in Delhi in the 1990s. So recently, I was the municipal executive officer, and when I was checking the encroachment there, I brought down a few walls as well, and I felt like I really finally did my justice to reading his autobiography then. My point is, read, know what is there after this. This is not just an exam. An exam is just your entry gate. So once you get in, there's a lot to do, and you should be kind of mentally prepared to go in. If you're prepared, you'll stay motivated. Apart from this, there will be dark patches. There will be tough times, especially when you hit failure, especially when you don't know what you're doing, especially when you see your other friends really making it very easily, especially when you see somebody like Simi ma'am get it through in the first attempt straight after college. I'm just saying it's not easy, and you'll get there. Make sure you have your hobbies. Make sure you have something that you can recluse to, something that is just your space, and it really gives you happiness. For me, it was reading a lot of fiction. I read good fiction, I read bad fiction, I read crap fiction, I read anything and everything. Something else I try to do was, especially in Delhi, if you roam around, you can see a lot of history, you can see a lot of culture, you can see a lot of infrastructure, you can really connect a lot of it to your preparation. If you do that, you find a purpose in your preparation. So for example, if you're talking about multimodal transportation, I could connect it to a Delhi metro and how it's hard to get to from metro point to somewhere else. So you just find that meaning there. Otherwise, it will just be something limited to your books. If you can do that, it will make your life easier. Also have 2-3 friends. If you've been through IIT and you are not extremely introvert, if If you're introvert to some degree, it's fine. You'll have 2 or 3 people who are your people who are there with you no matter what. Do not let go of them. Discuss your strategy with them. Tell them about what you read in the news. I also realized a lot of people who work in the tech world were kind of slightly disconnected with the news. So it was fun for them to hear this side of the stories. And for me, it was just fun finding that validation that, okay, what I'm reading, it has some meaning. I can make some good conversation based on that. So, and these people will also have your back when you get stuck. And have such friends in your preparation, maybe 1 or 2 of them at least. Have 2, 3 friends outside the preparation who will keep you sane. And again, the role of your family, if you keep them involved, it will be easy. But your family might also question when you get stuck. Your relatives might also question, तुम्हें ये करने की क्या जरूरत थी? तुम्हें अच्छी नौकरी मिल गई थी, तुम्हें पैसे से मिल रहे थे. Be careful who you let inside. Be careful who you listen to, and you can keep the motivation up. Baki, you can watch proper videos, you'll do enough things. Also be careful. Topper talks will make you feel that, okay, these guys are so polished, so so much of seen people who cannot do anything wrong. That's not true. We did a fair share of mistakes. If you learn fast, you get through faster. If you don't learn fast enough, you take a few attempts, then you get through. Don't go by the polish. You're all ultimately humans, and you'll get here. And if you clear JEE, I'm sure you clear 1 month exam. Just about finding a rhythm and sticking with it. This is a legit marathon. This is not easy. Enough with this, ma'am. Please, I'm back to you.
I think you covered it pretty comprehensively. I think a lot of things I thought of saying in this answer, but I think my approach to this exam was, I think, quite different from a lot of other people. A lot of people are motivated by public service and the fact that you get to work at the grassroots level. And those were definitely my motivations. But I think I was very practical about the exam. वो जो motivational labasna videos होते मैंने कभी नहीं देखा था, and I remember seeing them only to see कि and also like I saw them only to see कि भाई वहाँ पे dress code क्या है, what do I need to buy now. So that was the time when I finally saw those videos. I did not know what labasna looked like, what people were doing. Yes, my motivations were about the kind of job diversity, the kind of impact that people see, and the kind of satisfaction that they get out of it. The general idea was there, but I was not emotional about the exam. Like I said, I was very clear I was going to give 3 attempts, 1 step at a time. I was very clear what I had to do next. And that sort of kept me sane, I think. And also not get थोड़ा वो बह जाना नहीं हो जा रहा था emotions में कि this is do or die. This is just another job. And you are giving an exam, which I accept is one of the toughest exams in this country. And it is really difficult to get through. And there's a lot of motivation behind it to clear the exam. But I was very practical ki bhai, I have to keep my head cool, just like I think a lot of us are about JEE. So I think that is something that really kept me driven throughout. Apart from that, yes, we all have our low times. I remember during mains, after I think second GS2 paper, I came back and I was crying for non-stop for an hour because I thought I've screwed up GS2, which is the paper which overlaps with my optional. And if I've done so badly in this paper, there's no meaning to go and give the rest of the papers the next day. I was that disappointed with my performance. But yes, at that point, I had my parents there to lift me up. So we all need that support system to be present for us. And definitely another thing that helped me was having this friend circle outside of this preparation. To know that dunya exists outside of your small bubble of preparation, where everything feels like the same routine every day, again going through the rigor of revising over and over again. Just to know the fact that there's a real world existing out there really gave me hope and I think motivation. So yeah, these are some of the things I think that kept me driven.
Wow, really nice answers from both of you.
Yeah, I just want to come back on this because ma'am just shared the anecdote and that reminded me of something else. When I gave my second prelims, that was one of the toughest paper of prelims till date, only superseded by the next year when they even asked questions on sports section. So it was a tough prelims, and I knew maybe out of the 100 questions, I knew maybe 35, 40. And I guess marked the rest of it. And I came out of the exam hall, and the next paper is CSAT, which you need to just qualify.
Right.
I came out and told my father, he was there for the exam. I told him, Papa, chhod dijiye, ab CSAT ka point nahi, let's just go home. Nahi hone wala hai. And I was really depressed. Same thing happened after, during GS as well. There were some papers which I thought were my strength area. Didn't do very well in them. But I also want to tell you here that I thought my GS3 went very well. GS3 is basically economics, and it's a lot of things which are sort of logical, rational, intuitive, and so on. And I thought I had written everything I had there. And then there was a GS4 paper, ethics paper, which did not go well. In 3-4 questions, I just really scribbled through whatever I could, made a lot of diagrams here and there. You also realize this when you're doing the preparation. When you run out of time or content, you just make some random flow, show a few arrows, you show some like progress, and kind of hope that the examiner fills it with whatever else they have on their head.
Yeah.
So I did that a lot in my ethics paper, and I thought I really screwed it up. And like I said, I had a separate test series for ethics. I was really banking on it. When the marks came, okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
I think stages
Yes,
network
sir.
this is gone. Yeah. So when the marks came, my GS3 was really bad. My GS4 was one of the highest. So GS can be very subjective. Don't take it too hard. But on the whole, your marks will reflect your preparation. That is that.
I think
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your data pack ran out.
No, sir, I'm operating on the IITB's endless Wi-Fi, so I don't think that will happen.
So some other issue then.
So, I think video is not visible, I guess.
I mean, just turn on the
It's
video.
fine,
It's
we
fine.
can
Just
hear
continue
you.
the audio. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think it's good now. Yeah. So now coming on to next, there is a lot of fuss about the UPSC interviews in the all over the country, and you can say all over the world, that they ask very crazy questions in the interview, and you really need a good, intelligence to get clear of those. So maybe you can tell us some of the questions, what are the general pattern and how to deal with that. Sorry.
I'd like to
Okay,
take
should
this
I
one,
take
ma'am.
this one?
It's too difficult for me.
Oh, okay. So I think I think so first thing to realize that is that it's not interview, it's a personality test. What UPSC calls it, it's a personality test. And I think for anyone who's had a normal interview, not the rigorous ones, just the normal basic kind, it holds true. They're really testing your personality, and they're trying to know your perspective on a lot of different things in life. And here I think like what we had talked about earlier about reading the newspaper every day, I think it's not just to gain knowledge, but it's more to build a perspective in life. So you hear a lot of different schools of thought, and then you come up with your own perspective. That's what I use the newspaper for. So by the time interview came around, I think I had a whole lot of different interesting perspectives on a different things, and that reflected in my interview. And how did that happen was, so I'll tell you what my interview felt like, because it's quite interesting. I had PK Joshi sir's board, and when I went first, they were very bored. It looked like someone had bored the hell out of them, and this is just another person who's going to bore them even further. I was probably the third one in, and so they were asking very dry questions. Name three political science theorists, this, that. And then there was this lady member in the panel, and she asks me, okay, Simi, I have gone to IIT Bombay. It's a horrible place. And I was shocked. What is this lady saying? So she says, oh, I just saw a guy getting hurt very badly by a bunch of cows. And just then a video had come out where like a bunch of cows had like really hurt badly a guy.
Yeah.
And then there are so many stray cows. It's a very bad environment. And I was trying to move it around. I was trying to turn it around and say, no, ma'am, it's a very green environment. We have Sanjay Gandhi National Park, there's the Powai Lake. It does not feel like you're staying in Bombay. But she was taking none of it. And now the others were getting really interested. Ki kya chal raha hai? So then I don't know how, but I sort of made a joke about it. So I said, ma'am, that's actually a very interesting joke in our college. Everyone says that we worked so hard. We worked put in so much effort for the past 4 years to get into those gates. And these cows just had a free pass and they're roaming around freely. That's so unfair to us. And the whole panel, for some reason, just laughed. And I could sense the energy changing in the room since then. Because the kind of questions that flowed in after that showed that the panelists were interested. They were interested to know my perspective on a lot of different things. And that came up in the questions. So another thing which really helps, I think, is you sort of try to drive the interview. sort of, with the kind of things that you're saying. So for example, for some things, somehow this question came up about rural versus urban life, and what do you think are the pros and cons? So there I mentioned a point about how in Chhattisgarh we have this Toni Pratha, where some women are considered, old women are considered as witch, and then they're ostracized by the entire community. So this was the third panelist, and the fourth panelist asked the first question based on Toni. Okay, so you've seen this Pratha, now tell me how will you solve this? So you're sort of driving the interview by the kind of answers that you're giving. Then there are some very standard questions. For example, women's rights, reservation, climate change, etc. So I was very well prepared for these. Very well in the sense I had a good perspective on this. So this question came up about reservation, a good 2-minute rant, I think. And then he says, see, you are a general category student. That's so unfair to you. So he was going on a good rant. He thought that I might take it forward, and that would be a trap. So I said, sir, yes, I understand that reservation has had certain challenges or certain drawbacks, but that is because we are looking at deprivation from a very narrow angle of caste. Today, we have a lot of different kinds of deprivation. For example, a transgender does not get the benefit of reservation, or for that matter, an orphan child. So if we can see deprivation on various different categories, build an index out of it, and give different people benefits to different extents, along with facilitation at a young age, we will do much better with this system. And I think they really, hello?
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible.
You can. So yeah, so they, I think they found it quite interesting, this whole perspective, and then we had a conversation on it. So the kind of answers that you're giving really drives the interview, and that's something to take care of while preparing. Another thing, so we all of us give mock interviews. I think I was you'll get two kinds of feedbacks. One is, अच्छा तुम्हारे को ये नहीं आता है, तुमको ये नहीं आता है, तुम्हारा general knowledge ये खराब है. I remember one interview was particularly bad. I think the Drishti IS one, which is floating around on the internet a lot. It was horrible. They were asking a lot of general facts, like Mumbai is made out of how many islands. I was like, okay, that's a new fact to me कि अच्छा इतने island होते हैं. So these kind of questions, and then they went on to say कि, oh, you do not have knowledge in this area. But how much can you study? And well, it's everything under the sun in the syllabus. They can really ask you anything. And I did slip on a lot of questions, and I said, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know about this, and I will go back and read up on it. So that's a perfectly valid answer to give for a lot of factual questions. But they really test you on how you approach a problem. How quickly can you think on your feet? For example, that cow question perhaps was one of them, or the Toni one, because I did not know what to reply, but I made up one, and like I thought about it and I gave an answer. So these are the kind of feedback I think which are not useful at all. They just end up panicking you. They will say you read these 10 different newspapers, which is not humanly possible. So those are the kind of feedbacks you have to stay away from. There's another kind of feedback. They tell you about your body language, your tone, the way you present your answer. The same thing can be said in 5 different ways. 3 will upset them, and 2 will really get them interested into asking more questions. So initially, I remember during my mock interviews, I was getting this feedback that I come out as a very strong personality, and I can be very forceful in giving my points. So that's something I worked on, and eventually towards the later interviews, I was not getting that. So that's how you can use your answers well. So that is some feedback that really helped during my mock interviews. Over to you, Utkarsh.
Yeah, that's more or less what I had in mind. But just to add a few interesting takes, in interview, it is just a conversation. It is just a focused conversation. Do not go for anything else. You have been preparing for an interview your entire life. Whatever you've done so far in school, in college, apart from that, all of that is basically what drives the conversation. So if you have something on your desk that could be, and it's not just something for you to prepare, it's also something that the people will be guided by. They'll ask you questions based on that. Apart from that, it's just a check of, like ma'am said, how you present, how you talk, can you be an officer? So it can take a lot of different strategies. In my first attempt, I remember the chairperson normally starts the interview. It was Sujata Mehta ma'am, a retired foreign secretary. She asked me a few questions, which I thought I did decently. The next member she passed on the baton to. He asked me 3 questions. The first was, what was Nelson Mandela's governance model? And I was like, okay, I have no idea where this even came from. It's not on my draft. It's not relevant at all. But I told him something about Nelson Mandela in 2 lines, and I told him I do not know the governance model. The next question was, why do a lot of people visit Egypt? Again, not on my draft at all. It was just something out of the blue. I did mention pyramids. I did mention textile, few something else about culture and so on and so forth. From that, he asked me how old are the pyramids. So at that moment, sitting there, all I could think of was, okay, where is this going? Where is this guy going with these questions? I see no point of this. In hindsight, that could have been just his way of throwing whatever wild he could think of at me and see how I respond to that. Similarly, one of my hobbies was mountaineering. I was actually in the adventure sports club, both of my department at institute and even the institute adventure club.
Yeah.
Something I continue even in Labasna. I was the adventure secretary there as well. So yeah, thank you. I remember.
Oh.
One of the questions I got on this was, why is the density of ice higher than water on mountains? Which makes no sense. When you freeze water, it becomes ice. It encapsulates air crystals and so on and so forth. So it becomes lighter. It was a question I still don't have an answer to. It was thrown to me in the interview board. Again, my theory is that they're trying to stress test and see where I went with that. I simply said, sir, I think it's the other way around. I do not know if what you're saying is true. So it's okay if you just say, okay, I don't know this. But do not try to bluff. Do not bluff. They're 60 plus years old people who've been in very eminent positions, who've seen the world, and you're a noob to them. Each person there has more years of experience than your entire age. So do not try to fool, just have a good conversation, be genuine and present all that. Baki, the interview can go on any tangent. It can go in any direction. I'll just ask you a bunch of current affairs. That's what happened in my first attempt. They can stress test you. That was something happened in my first attempt. They can just have a very guided conversation that happened in my second attempt. They can ask you very personal questions. They can ask you very questions around your decision, questions around your preferences for service, for cadre, for a lot of things. There is no structure. Just don't go with any structure in mind. The reason we give mock interviews is just to sort of explore the 70-80% of Simi ma'am. I think your network is not clear. I can't see your video. So the point of giving mock interviews is that you cover most of the branches. So again, think of the interview as a graph. You start somewhere and there are different paths you can take, different paths you can traverse. And depending on your answers, you traverse different paths. You can go really in depth. You can go really sort of cover the breadth of it, depending on the interviewer's mindset. If they're in the mood, they can just keep you asking you the same question in depth, and you have to keep answering that. Or if they're in the mood, they can sort of cover different perspectives. So just go with that open mindset and make sure you prepare whatever you can beforehand and leave it to God. And the rest of it will be all right. I was unlucky, I think, in my second interview because a guy, one of the members there, he had served in my home district. So he had way too many insights on that. He asked me questions like, okay, you're from Hazaribagh. Tell me why education in Hazaribagh was very good in the British times and it did not take off after the independence. That's something I had never thought of, and I could not say anything. All I could say was, okay, sir, there is still the Catholic movement was strong earlier, so they did a lot. After independence, our focus was on a lot of things, including poverty alleviation. So we didn't focus on this as much, but we still established a few colleges and schools, which I gave the names. And he was not satisfied. His next question was, how would you boost the industry in Hazaribagh? Hazaribagh does not have an industry. All we have is some mines. We have some very basic firms like bottling plants and so on. So I gave examples of those and I told him what the potential was of forest produce and so on and so forth. Again, he was not convinced. I do not know what he was looking for. But I at least I want to believe that was my bad luck and I didn't do too much. I still got 171, 172, which is average. My point is just go with an open mindset. You do not know where it will go and you have been preparing your entire life. So if you just go and be alive, be interesting, be open. Don't try to block questions. Don't try to dodge questions. And the rest will be fine. Just be open.
Yeah, I think that's we can sum up interview as an pressurized situation where you have to be just like genuine. Not pressurized.
Need not be pressurized. It could be
Need
that. It's just a focused conversation.
Okay. You have to be just genuine and don't bluff in front of them. Now coming almost to the last question of this session. Let's talk about your lifestyle right now. So being in the administrative services must be a challenging and yet exciting experience, given the new challenges you are facing. So, ma'am, let's start with you. Could you share your current experience being an IS officer?
I think Utkarsh should start first, given that he's doing his training, and then I can come to the
Okay.
subdivision life.
Yeah, that's how administration works as well. The junior officer ends up doing the heavy lifting, and the senior
Yes.
officer ends up approving
We
or
just bring
fixing.
up the rear. Yeah.
Yeah, you make sure we don't miss anything, and it's not for you. Yeah, only 6 months on the field, 1 year of training in Labasna, which is basically college life 2.0, only on steroids because everybody is extremely hyperactive, very social. It's fun. It's definitely fun. You'll get to do things which you probably never did before if you want. If you take the initiative, you'll do a lot. I never danced before Labasna, never danced, not once, not in Bharat, not ever. I danced 3 times on the stage there because I really wanted to sort of do away with that
Wow.
fear. There's a lot of
That's
exposure.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot of exposure, a lot of things. You really get to form that network of people because once you come to the field, you'll realize you are alone in a lot of you cannot open up to everybody because almost everybody has their own vested interests. In Jharkhand, land is a very major issue. So almost everybody has some zameen which they want to be fixed. You cannot open up to people. You open up to your family, you open up to your batchmates, friends from before. That is it. So if you have similar All India Services officers in your district, it makes it easier. I do not have one. The only one I had left 2 months back, so I don't even have somebody to vent out to. You see it. There's plenty to explore here. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. As a probationer, you kind of just keep exploring what you can do, what you cannot do. You also come with a mindset, okay, दुनिया बदल लेंगे, दुनिया नहीं बदलनी है, बस खुद को बदलो, समझो system को, and get work done. I have had 2 charges so far, 2 independent offices. One of the BDO, the Block Development Officer, where we basically made a lot of Awas payments by verifying the beneficiaries. It was humbling and gratifying to see the sort of people that you're working for. And at the same time, fun because you could see that, okay, a woman came out of a kacha house and claimed, this is my house. I went inside, I saw there was nothing there. The chulha was not lit at all. And one of the criteria for PM Awas is that if you have a pakka house, you are not eligible. Then I inquired around and people pointed out, okay, she has a house elsewhere. So we went to that house and there's all of this stuff there. So we ended up disqualifying her. So it's a lot of that cat and mouse game, a lot of human interaction, a lot of people management. You manage your juniors, you manage your seniors, you manage your different stakeholders, you manage your political side representatives, you manage a lot of people. It's just that. If you can do that, you'll succeed. What else? And in between, you can do some good work. I'm really proud of that Awas payments. None of my batchmates made any payments in Awas. I made over 400 payments in my 1.5 month tenure by verifying most of them on the field. Also, in the municipality charge, we did a lot of things. This was a new Nagar Panchayat set up by merging 2 Gram Panchayats. So in the past 4 years, there was no full-time officer there. So a lot of things were just not happening. We found a few ponds that we ended up auctioning for fishing. So that boosts the revenue as well as lets the government help out the fishermen. We also did a lot for the parking. It's a very small town, very old town. This single main road through the city. There's no pavement, just the drains are there and the drains are encroached. The vehicles are on the drains, the vehicles are on the roads. It's just a mess. Think of the smallest town in India and it's probably smaller than that. So that was one of my sort of priorities when I went in. We drew lines on the pavements with white tuna powder and white paint. We drew those lines and then we cut challans for people. In a matter of 1 week, the traffic got much better. For encroachments, we gave repeated notices, and then we broke down the rest of it. We even brought down the walls of a couple of restaurants which are built on the drainage, and you could not believe the amount of space that was suddenly available. It was crazy. And that's the sort of thing which you cannot get elsewhere, but you also have your limitations. The circle officer who deals with the land, he told me that most of the build-up here is on government land. But if you touch that, you're basically opening up Pandora's box because people have been living there for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So if you touch that, suddenly they'll be insecure. You cannot be a tyrant. You also get a lot of calls for political representatives, what is called the political pressure. You need to know which battles you want to pick. You need to choose which problems you want to solve. You build your image. You identify your stakeholders. Most importantly, you need to know what the rule provisions are. You cannot exceed your powers. You do that, you're good to go. Nobody will question you, and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot more, but please, ma'am,
Yeah.
please bring in your insights.
Yeah. So I think did a good job in terms of the training part. I'll cover what my post right now entails.
Yeah.
So right now my position is SDO Civil, Subdivisional Officer Civil. So basically in a district you have two parts, Sadar and Civil. Sadar, the jurisdiction comes directly under the DC, Deputy Commissioner, we call them here, Collector in other places, DM in other places. And the rest of the area comes under the SDO Civil, which I am holding charge right now. So I think in us, it's a very state cadre specific thing, but in Assam here, SDO is sort of like a mini DC because we can do a lot of different activities based on whatever the DC delegates to us. So we get to work in a lot of different domains. What are our core domains is, for example, disaster management. My subdivision is a heavily flood affected subdivision. So that's something we're preparing for right now for the upcoming months. Then in elections. So interestingly, in Assam, SDO Civil, Utkarsh will appreciate a lot more. SDO Civil is also the district election officers. So we are separate district election districts. So panchayat elections are coming up after that. So that's something that will be my within my purview. Supply department, supply of ration to different beneficiaries is directly under my purview. We have a few other branches, for example, law and order, magistracy, those come under my purview. We have a few revenue works, not all of it. And then we have a lot of fun doing a lot of different initiatives and activities. So for example, I spend a good lot of time exploring the functioning of different departments. For example, the social welfare department, which is the network of Anganwadis, which caters to preschool children. And then you have the network of schools, you have the network of hospitals, and all of different domains. So we keep visiting all these places. You interact with the frontline workers. These are the ashas or the Anganwadi workers or the school teachers who are catering to the population directly. You have interactions with them and you get to know a lot of details directly from the field. And it is humbling. It is humbling to know how much they're working and what are the different kind of works they're doing and how can you try and help them improve the works that they're doing. So in this domain, we've been doing a lot of works. For example, education. Education is something I take a lot of interest in, and we are doing a very interesting project with Pratham on learning outcomes among children. For example, healthcare is something we're looking. For example, Assam is very high on maternal and infant mortality rate. So that's something we keep a track of, and how can we prevent that, reduce that. Anganwadis is another very interesting domain, which I take a lot of interest in. So there we monitor the performance, monitor how whether our children are malnourished and how can we improve their health outcomes. And along with that, the early childcare and education. So similarly, you can dip your fingers into each and every domain. And that's very satisfying. Like that's one big takeaway for these past 2.5 years that I've been in this job. It's humbling and it's satisfying. And interestingly, like he remembers, like Utkarsh told about the Awas payments. So there's we came across two girls who were blind, and they would probably lose out on their disability pension if not for getting an Aadhaar. Now, how do you get the Aadhaar done for two blind kids? Interestingly, a lot of people don't know this, and then I talked and I read up and then I got to know. So there's an exceptional persons category where you don't need to take the biometrics, but you still get an Aadhaar. So then we got a vehicle arranged for them. They went and then they got it done. And I don't know why, but that's the incident that sticks to me most throughout these past 6 months of working here. These are these small specific incidents where you're able to make the lives of people easier, make them reach the facilities faster, and probably intervene, perhaps at a time where no other institution could have helped them. So that's the sort of power you come with. And also you realize that this, like Utkarsh said, we are basically man managers. I think we are the HRD department of the subdivision. So you manage each and every staff in your jurisdiction without having a lot of penal provisions, interestingly, for them. So you get to work with a lot of frontline workers. You have the funds, you have the functionaries, and you can try and do some small interventions. And it's also a lot of humbling experience to learn from the field, like I mentioned before. Apart from that, for example, like Utkarsh mentioned, municipality. So that's something we've been working on here, beautification of the town. So these third tier towns generally have a lot of drainage problems, traffic problems, cleanliness in general. The waste management network is not very well built. So these are all different domains that you get to work on. And the best part, I think, is it's just so diverse. You don't know what your day is going to feel like. I think you feel like, oh, it's going to be a boring day, perhaps. Aaj to main field mein nahi jana, and then suddenly something comes up, and then you're out there whole day dealing with the situation. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So we have a lot of like national. We have a 4 laning of national highway going on. India's first multimodal logistics park is coming up at Jogi Gufa, which falls in my subdivision. We have a lot of big industrial projects which are coming up here now in Jogi Gufa, which is so much fun. Like you get to interact with so many different kinds of people. You get to hear so many different perspectives of public. But of course, in a very official capacity, like Utkarsh said, you have to maintain that distance. So I would also like to mention subdivision life can get a little isolating. Utkarsh probably does not have any IS officer in his district. It's similar for me here, but then you find your own networks. You find your own set of people. You have people nearby in and around in the neighboring districts, or you find out people in other domains. But of course, you have to maintain that distance and that balance wherever. But it's fun. I think my job is fun, and I'm going to stick around till it's fun. So yeah, that's one big takeaway. ये बहुत मजा आता है यार this job में.
I want to chime in a little bit more. When you come to an office, you'll also realize there's a lot of people working under you. A lot of time you won't even know who's doing what because it's just a lot of people moving around with files, with this, a lot of things.
Yes.
And the funniest thing is, if you're not there, the office will still be running.
Yes.
Those clerks still know the rules. They still know the provisions. They still know the procedure. Your office will still be functional. Where you come in is basically as interveners, as you can call it the X factor, you can call it something else. You will be the person who will identify, okay, is that fund lying unutilized? What can we do with that? In my Nagar Panchayat, there was some 40,000 rupees which was lying around in the road safety fund, which we realized towards the end of my tenure. So they did not know what to do with it. So we ended up planning a painting competition on road safety, and we'll get the school children to paint it, and the winners will not only get awards, their paintings will get painted around the district. So there were some walls that we identified where we could paint it. So that is sort of intervention or planning that you can bring in. Otherwise, the office will still keep on functioning. I think that's one of the drawbacks of the way our services is designed, because you don't have clear set of incentives directly in the service, partly because it's also very subjective. It means that as an officer, you can really get by with doing very little, and your office will still be functioning. But if you want to take it to the next level, you'll have to do a fair amount of hard work. But that extra thing, like ma'am said, finding out those rules, those provisions, which people do not commonly know, because they know what comes across their way 80% of the times. What does not come across commonly is not known to them. You'll be the one who will search out the specific law, the specific rules, the specific circular of the government, the letter, and you will find out what exactly that said. That is where you bring in the difference. When you walk around in the district, you'll be representing the government. People will respect you. People will listen to you. That is what you add to the table, and that at times you can forget that.
So I'll just chip in one last thing. So I think I look at IS officers as facilitators more than anything else. We just bring that sort of boost to the system. And I think we are also the most useless unit in the system, that the system will keep running. And just imagine your office running without your Bada Babu, and you would realize how much havoc it can create without having that person in place. But yes, we act as facilitators. And one of the most important things is to take along everyone in the field. So Assam, especially, I know as a cadre, is a place where you earn respect of the people by the kind of works you do, the way you talk to them, and how you take everyone along. That has been a huge learning curve for me here. And I think one of the, I just remember one of the best achievements throughout my internship during my probation was, during my video tenure, we got there was no ladies toilet in the block complex, video block complex. And we got a dedicated, we had to push a lot of GPs to contribute funds. We brought in a lot of block funds. And then we got a proper RCC structure made with a proper changing mirror and everything. Like, it was a good complex for the ladies.
I think ma'am's data pack has run out now.
Dedicated.
Ma'am, we can't hear you.
And
We can't hear you.
it took a lot of hard. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, it's fine now. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, please continue.
That's something a lot of effort. But yeah, we finally brought it in, and to see a structure being made under your leadership, with while taking along so many different people, it's a great experience. That was the starting point to my journey. So yeah, it's a great experience.
The same way for the structure being demolished. That wall that I brought in, I'll remember it forever.
Yeah, sir. So yeah, so your responses really added value to all this discussion, and I guess my list of questions exhaust here. We can have some audience questions. Let me see in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess people are having some discussion
I'll
about.
just quickly run through it and save you both some
Yeah.
time. Does a PhD help in UPSC preparation? A PhD is not helping a UPSC preparation. In fact, for your preparation, you have so many subjects. You don't want to do a PhD in those either. You touch and brush on a lot of subjects. If you want to do a PhD, please do a PhD for the sake of it. And if you invested 5 years to 6 years doing something, why not continue that forward? Is my take, because it's not just 5 or 6 years of PhD. It's also your bachelor's plus maybe a master's plus your PhD. If you spent 8 years, 9 years, 10 years doing something, just be sure what you're giving up. There's a fair number of people who come in with a master's from even abroad, even from Stanford, for example. There are one or two such instances. Nothing wrong, nothing right. Be sure what you're looking for here. And why would you want to do a PhD if you want to end up here? You can do a PhD later here as well. You can do a PhD relevant to governance, to rural studies, and so on. I think Kiran Bedi ma'am did a PhD in narcotics elimination. There's one of my batchmates who wants to pursue a PhD in economics. So you can do that later as well. I think that's one of the things about being in the service. The government really encourages you to go for higher studies, be it masters, be it PhDs. They even fund those things. So you can pursue that later as well. Just throwing all sorts of options in front of you. Duration prepper first attempt. I'll leave these questions. Prepare for UPSC while working after final year after taking a drop. Ma'am prepared in her final year. I prepared after. How to prepare alongside a job? Just find those windows. I did not prepare alongside a job. I just did enough to get started. So I would find those. I would do my job, do justice to it, because otherwise you feel hollow. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you find that extra 2-3 hours, 4 hours, and then you spend your weekends on this. But be careful. Working alongside this can be very exhaustive. If you want to start UPSC in third year, how can you go for it? I think ma'am already touched on this. You start with your NCRTs, you read newspapers, you watch topper videos, read biographies, get the sort of context right before you jump into the entire preparation. Similarity between UPSC and UPPSC, that's something again a lot of you will have to take a call on. Do you want to appear for state exams and other exams or not? I did not, because I wanted to focus here. I think ma'am also did not choose to appear for any of them, but there's a lot of overlap. But I will still suggest at least give 2 attempts here wholeheartedly to UPSC, and then if you feel like okay, this is not working out, and if you want to back up or whatever, please go for state level exams.
Also,
there's a lot of
from
overlap.
the state service perspective, there's 2-3 things to keep in mind. One is language. If you come from a regional place, you would have to know the language. Second is the history, local history, that comes up a lot. Local current affairs, because I know APSC exam is based more or less on UPSC. Local current affairs, local history, local culture, those are things that you'll have to take care of.
Ideally, to start prep for UPSC, given that you don't want to straight in placements, the soonest you're sure. I'll just need 5 minutes.
So criteria to consider for deciding optional, I'll just tell you what I based my optional on. I did not want to go for a electrical engineering optional, so I wanted to switch. And I was considering all the different like these art subjects. And 2-3 things. First, most importantly, is does it pique your interest? If not, you will not be able to do justice to it. You'll not be able to give those extra hours and the extra effort that it needs. First thing. Second, I think that helped in my case. PSIR has a very good overlap with the general studies papers. That helped in preparing both of them simultaneously, given that I had very limited time to prepare. Thirdly, availability of resources. I think for a subject like PSIR, socio-anthro, there is abundant amount of resource available along with guidance. So that's something to keep in mind if it's a new subject for you. And fourthly, this is something people just consider whether current affairs or not. A lot of people tend to go for subjects which does not have current affairs. I personally did not mind, because any which ways I had to prepare current affairs for general studies. But yes, that's an extra effort that will have to be put in. So these are some of the things that I considered. Utkarsh, you can add.
Yeah, that's more or less the factors
Yeah.
as well. Just be genuine. Be have that interest. Go through the papers. See if the questions make sense to you, and just go with it. If you choose a humanities optional, that could be smaller than your engineering optionals. It will also help in your GS preparation. I chose maths because I was comfortable with maths and it's very scoring. It has now come down. The difference is not that high as it used to be. When
Mm.
Kanishk sir got 361, the highest in humanities was 330 by Akshat, I think, anthropology. Now the difference has really come down. It's maybe 10, 15, 20 marks. So the gap is not that much. But if you still enjoy maths, please take it for the sake of it. It's still very high scoring. both the times I was pretty clear what my marks was going to be for maths, just to sort of chime in. Does CPI matter in UPSC? No, it does not. Absolutely does not. But if it's low, you might have to justify it in the interview. It also helps if you have been consistent academically. It's sort of is a continuity that way, but it's not a deal breaker. How to manage UPSC with academics already answered. Major mistakes a student do. There's way too many mistakes. We've discussed a lot of them now. How can you connect to more and more alumni who clear the UPSC? Go to SARC or Career Cell. They'll find you those contacts.
Yeah.
More than that, just go through their channels, because any alumni would hesitate to take you on as a mentee, because there's a lot of people approaching you. You can't always give that sort of dedicated guidance. But if you are stuck at a very specific point, please reach out. There's my number as well. My Telegram ID is Utkarsh K5. You can just ping me anytime you want. Please come with very specific questions. Don't come up with questions like how to clear exam, if I'm stuck in prelims. Don't do that, please. Does academic performance impact? Does done discussed. A lot of topics are open-ended. Don't have a confined syllabus. How can you prepare? We already discussed this, right? We have the book
Yeah,
research, current
we have
affairs, you have the
discussed.
newspapers. Just go through that. How do you tackle the issue of getting distracted? Ma'am, do you want to answer this one?
Which one? How do you tackle the issue of getting distracted? You go ahead.
I left WhatsApp because there's a lot of like noise, including my family groups. But that's your personal call. Just be motivated, and the rest of it is fine. And you anyway need some distractions to keep you entertained. You need your hobbies, you need your sports. I used to go running every day, at least 4-5 times a week. I ran 5 kilometers. I did some basic workout, etc. Because that kept me motivated. It is also a stress burner. Find your ways of burning the stress. That's fine. Major points of difference between IIT and becoming engineer, IIT becoming IAS. We've already discussed those things. What difference is preparation can make? Oh, that's a very personal question. You learn austerity because you don't have money. You learn perseverance because it's a long process. You learn humility because you will inevitably have some failures. You'll also be more informed and a far better citizen because you know things far better. It feels good, but only if you sort of make the transition. If you don't transition, that can become a baggage you carry the rest of your life. Summarize minimum hours is again too random a question. You just give enough time you can, and you'll do it. Any extra time for handicapped students? You get some scribes, etc. If you're not able.
Yeah. They don't get extra time. I think scribe they do get.
Yeah,
but
they
I'm
get
not
scribes.
sure about extra.
Yeah, they get scribes. How to start if you're planning to taking maths as option in college? I have a Telegram channel. I've written a lot in detail on that. Bottom line is IMS notes is full and final. Start with that. That will cover 80% of the thing. Go through test series and previous year questions. The rest is fine. How can we know about trends in paper weightage, etc. before starting prep? You don't. You watch proper videos. Yeah.
And it's analyzed thoroughly enough on channels like Visionize, GS Score, etc. They do that more than enough.
Yeah. Friend circle matters a lot. How to select them? You have an interview for them. No, I'm kidding. You know your friend circle already. You know who's good, who's not.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Yes.
If there's 1 or 2 questions, quickly we can take it from the audience. Just 1 or 2.
Maybe if there are, or I guess.
Just put it in the chat. It's there. That is fine. We'll slide it.
I think we're done now, I guess.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so
all the best. We hope we see more officers coming out of this crowd and coming back to these sessions and feel nice talking about your preparation. It's always like ma'am would say, it's fun to come back and then talk about your journey, right?
Yeah. Thank you, sir and ma'am, both of you, to have
fulfilling.
taking the time
All
to
the very
provide such
best.
answers. Yeah.
Thank you for having us here.
Yep. Thank you, Sark. Thank you, IIT Bombay.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. This is Vikas.
Yep.